Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Niblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to talk about the biggest hot shots and have nots of the last couple of weeks. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, the man with the grittiest shake and the spiciest bake. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are you feeling tonight?
I don't know what that means, but it sounds nice. So I'm into that.
Damn it, it's compelling.
Yeah, it is compelling. It's like you want to dig deeper and get underneath the surface and see what's what. What the hell am I talking about? It's way too early for this. I feel good, man. It's Sundays are always, pretty, I guess, quote unquote fun in the fantasy hockey universe. It's where all your matchups are decided, and you want to punch through a drywall like an insane Chad, but that's fine. Buddy, one thing I did notice, actually, I just noticed this. We put up our Christmas decorations today. It's December 1st here, so yeah, put up our Christmas decorations. But there's so many sparkles like all over those ornaments, and I got it all over myself. And I just wanted a disclaimer: I didn't put on some type of lotion that's like a shimmery lotion. All right, so if you're watching on YouTube, just know that I didn't do that, but I'm open to it. I don't know. What about you, Nate?
Well, yeah, I'd hear my next sentence was going to be to compliment you on your shining complexion, but now I know it's all fake and it's not going to happen again. So
I should get some bronzer though. I mean, this is a lighting issue, folks. Again, YouTube. I'm not this pale, but I might get a bronzer of some sort. We're going to experiment with some stuff. Anyways, buddy, how you doing?
I was doing great. Then, literally, while the intro video was running, I spilled my drink all over everything here. Hopefully, nothing shorts out and this podcast doesn't die a
God.
horrible death in the middle. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, we were talking about it beforehand. The Nick Jensen stream of all time. We'll talk about it more later. But
We will.
yeah, making a comeback in one of my leagues today, and that feels really good. So I'm in a good mood to start this thing
Love it.
off. I think we should just get going, though. We should talk about these newsies. Kucherov missed Saturday's game with an undisclosed injury. I've not seen anything new online anywhere about what's going on there. Tampa does have a low schedule this week in terms of games played. They don't play again until Thursday, so they got some time to figure out here. Maybe it's just a maintenance thing, but yeah, always a little scary when it's undisclosed and you just have no idea what to expect. Although, I mean, is undisclosed any better than lower body injury, upper body injury, Blake?
It all stinks. But the good thing with Kucherov is that he was injured in the second period of that game, and then he came out and finished the third, right? And assisted on the winner in overtime. So I don't know. That leads me to believe it's not going to be that bad. Maybe they're going to give him the Matthews treatment with the 2-game week here. Let him take some time.
Yeah, could be. Ehlers missed the game Sunday, seen a doctor on Monday. Yeah, originally there sounded like there was some hope that he might even be able to go Sunday, but now it sounds like he's getting more opinions, which is not ideal. But yeah, we'll see what's going on there. We'll probably get more word on Monday then. Now, David Jiricek getting traded. This has been in the works for a bit. There's been some reporting on it. Elliot Friedman has been talking about it a fair bit. Trade to Minnesota for Damon Hunt and in picks, including a first rounder. Could be something here, right? Jiricek was looking for more ice time than he was getting. And maybe they have something to offer him in Minnesota. Like, they gave up a first round pick. They clearly think highly of this player. Was a sixth overall pick in his draft year, so definitely has some pedigree from that respect. Yeah, just wasn't in the plans. I'm not convinced. Like, I honestly don't know. I'm never gonna write off a player that's this young that hasn't really gotten a ton of games under their belt. Lots of time defensemen take a lot longer to really mature in the league as well. So really just seems like Columbus tried to do the right thing by the player who wanted out, and were able to find a good deal, good return as well from Minnesota there. So feels like it could be a win-win for both sides. But yeah, keep an eye. We'll get to it, but Minnesota has been playing around with the power play one there, so we could see some interesting stuff for Jiricek maybe sooner rather than later. Over in Seattle, we got Vince Dunn back and immediately goes on power play one. That does not mean that Montour was off power play one, though. Both guys just there, just both defensemen on the top power play. Is this what we should expect moving forward, Blake?
Teams used to do this. Remember, it was two defensemen, three forwards, and then somebody got cute. All right. But I think, I mean, Dunn is, his value is good regardless of sort of where he plays. Obviously, if he gets access to power play one, that's going to be a little bit better. But remember, it's Seattle. Can you name me who their power play one is right now? Like, for God's sake, is Matty Beniers on it? Because, buddy, what the hell are you doing?
He
Actually,
is.
oh, there you go. So the power play one should be whichever one has Jared McCann, right?
Yeah,
So, and that's fine. But I think Dunn's still going to have some nice value here. But coming back off a big injury, we got to temper expectations for a little bit here.
for sure. Cam Talbot injured early in the game Sunday, and it's a situation where Lyon is already out, so Ville Husso goes in. I mean, talk to me, Blake. Are you gonna pick up some Ville Husso?
Well, why don't I drink out of a toilet bowl?
That's also an option. Might be a
I
better
will later.
option.
Yeah, when I'm parched.
Might honestly be a better option there. I mean, you can try it. I can't say I recommend it necessarily, but you can try it. They have Boston, Ottawa, Colorado this week. It's not like the most intimidating, but also not the least scary lineup of games this week. So um, you can try it. That's the best I can say
Nice.
about it. Jared Spurgeon was on top power play in the last game and netted a power play assist in that game for the Minnesota Wild. So Spurgeon versus Juracek, maybe the new power play one battle. I don't know. They may go back to Brock Faber as well. That's always a chance. Declan Chisholm has been around that spot
Yep.
as well. Like, they've tried a few things. Spurgeon, I think, gets a little bit of run here just because it worked the first time they tried it, right? That's usually how these things go. They're not going to just turn away right away. But I don't know what promises they made to Juracek when they made the trade for him either, if he was going to get some power play time or a shot at it at least. So I don't know. What's your thought, Blake? Is this just going to be a revolving door all year? Do you think that Juracek gets a chance?
I think he does get a chance, but not right away. Although they did call him up right away, so that was a
Yep.
question for me. It was like, okay, is he going to spend some time in the AHL and then come up? No, they called him up right away, so he's going to be with the big squad. But I mean, we know what Brock Faber does, who's been running with power play one there. It's kind of like Morgan Riley in Toronto. It's like they have him there out of necessity, but they don't really want him there, right? And I think that David Juracek is going to be potentially a better option. Right now, I think Spurgeon is he's a rosterable player currently. Like, I think he could get a little bit of run here. He was out in the overtime. He scored that overtime goal, sweet pass from Kaprizov. So I looked up on Yahoo. He's barely rostered Spurgeon. Like, this is a guy you can absolutely take a shot at. He's going to be out there on power play one. He's usually pretty good with his blocks, although they haven't been that great this year. But spec ad for sure for me for Spurgeon, and let's see what happens. I think, if I had to guess of those three guys, I think Faber probably makes the most sense, but Spurgeon is pretty damn close as well.
Yeah, I think I'd give Spurgeon a run this week just to see where things go from here. It's a good spot. Like the Minnesota power
Yeah.
play, Kaprizov, Boldy, these guys, Zuccarello, when he gets back, they can make that thing run. And so it's a good spot to be for sure. And Spurgeon can be a part of that. I don't know that he's going to light the world on fire, but he can probably give you what Brock Faber was giving you from that spot at the very least. I want to address this. Like, I think you're maybe slighting Morgan Riley just a little bit by comparing him to Brock Faber there. So
Oh, damn.
I have to
The only
stick up
reason
for my boy there.
it's just anytime a team goes to a 5 forward power play, you're like, okay, what's the problem? Like, what's the
Yeah.
problem with Morgan Riley? What's the problem? Like, it's maybe not a problem with the player. It's like the coach doesn't like the player out there for some reason. So I don't know. Yeah, shout out to Morgan Riley. He's an amazing player. I don't know. I got nothing against the man.
Great head of hair as well.
Yeah, beautiful head of hair, amazing hairline, great jawline as well. Let's get to biz.
All right. Scott Wedgwood got traded to the Colorado Avalanche for Justus Annunen. Annunen, obviously everybody's favorite sleeper in the offseason, including ours,
Oh
and
yeah.
things did not go very well in Colorado this year. But it did feel like kind of curious to me that they just kind of gave up on him and said, okay, we'll just get like a solid backup in here and Scott Wedgwood. Yeah, that felt kind of weird to me.
Mhm.
Wedgwood, I don't think is ever going to be a guy who like pushes Georgiev. And so that yeah, it just feels really weird. Like they are just like saying, okay, Georgiev is the guy. We don't think we can develop Annunen. We like there are other ways to get another
Yep.
goaltender in the building and just send Annunen down to fix his game. Like there's a lot of things that could have been done here. It feels like, but they are pretty much saying that Annunen is not good enough, and they just want a backup they can rely on. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I read it. It feels weird. It feels good for Georgiev. Like it feels like a vote of confidence
Mhm.
to Georgiev for me. I don't think Wedgwood like he could take I don't know 35% of starts maybe, but I think it's like 2 games for Georgiev, 1 game for Wedgwood kind of situation most likely, in my opinion. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's yeah, it's a weird decision for the Avalanche for sure. It's like our goaltending's terrible. Let's shore up our backup position, like
Yeah.
with an actual backup, like Scott Wedgwood, the wedgie. He's a backup for his career. He's never going to be a number one guy like Kevin Lankinen. Oh yeah, buddy. But for now. But yeah, it's just not an exciting thing. Obviously, it just says a lot about Justus Annunen as well. Like they really had no confidence because how do you get rid of a blue chipper like that? This guy probably he was not really put in a position to succeed. He did succeed when he played sheltered starts there with the Avalanche, but I mean he's a young guy. Like bring him up. I think they might regret this one a little bit moving forward.
Yeah, we'll have to see on that. But in the meantime, I don't think it's good for either player's fantasy relevance. Probably just good for Georgiev, and that's about all we can take away from it. I did want to throw in there at the end Igor Chinikov should be able to return at some point via Mark Sheeg on Twitter. Could return on the trip. Columbus is on, I think it's a 5 game road trip currently. If he progresses well, according to Dean Evison, Columbus does have 4 games this week. So there's definitely lots of opportunity throughout the week for him to join. They play Tuesday, then they play Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. So the back end of the week could be a good spot to get Chinikov in if he's not rostered in your league. All right, Blake, are you ready to get into some hot shots?
Buddy, I can't wait. Let's get into Nick Jensen right off the bat. Oh, buddy, the biggest hot shot there is.
Let's not. Let's talk about Roman
Oh, okay,
Yossi
okay, all right,
first.
that's fine.
Roman Yossi, 5 goals, 8 points in his last five, has finally arrived on the season. 26 shots per 60, 17th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 29th Corsi, 4 per 60, 62nd on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now on a 23 goal, 72-point pace on the season. All of his individual metrics that we like to look at on the season are in single digits amongst defensemen, and that's while skating 25 and a half minutes a night. Roman Yossi, yeah, the reports of Roman Yossi's demise were greatly exaggerated, Blake.
I love that. Yeah, it's if you could buy low on this guy, hopefully you did. I mean, he gets no respect. It's weird. Even going into the season, people were questioning if he was the second best fantasy option for D-men. Like it's a no-brainer. This guy's such a stud. He's doing this like a 72-point pace on this Nashville team that is really struggling, right? So imagine if these guys start popping a little bit. Like there's still a bunch of headroom for Roman Josi here. He got 85 points last year. I think he has point per game potential again this year, but obviously he needs some help from his team, right? These guys they're a bit stinky here this year, and that's sort of shown as on a shooting percentage there on the year. I think there's a little bit of headroom there, but yeah, this guy's amazing. A 20-goal D-man. What can you say? I love Roman Josi, and he's cooking on the power play too. 10 points already.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty much what we expected. What if you go back to anything that we said about Roman Yossi in the offseason, like that's our expectation moving forward. I don't think we're really moving off that line. I don't think we moved off that line really at any point in the
Yep.
early season here, even when things weren't going so well. I think Roman Yossi is one of those guys. He's elite enough that the system can't hold him down. Basically, is where I'd land with him. Next up, Brandon Hagel. He's got only 1 goal, but 9 assists for 10 points in his last 5. Obviously, the big 5 assist night there in the middle of last week. Big portion of that. 23.5 minutes average time on ice in this span. Decent individual underlying metrics at 91st shots per 60, 147th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, but the on ice numbers really shining here. 10th in Corsi 4 per 60, 23rd in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Now on pace for 36 goals and 103 points is Brandon Hagel. What's your takeaway here? How sustainable is this? Are you adjusting expectation on Hagel moving forward?
No. You got to bump it up a little bit. Like something I've been noticing this year, and sort of trying to identify with the players that I'm looking at are not just sell highs, but stay highs, right? And players that have legit taken another step. And I'm not sure if I'm putting Brandon Hagel in that boat just yet, but I mean, we had him projected for 70-ish points, and yeah, he's cooking for a 103-point pace right now. So there's lots to like about what he's doing, but he's not a 103-point player, folks. That's not real. I talked about him on the Sell High show. On ice shooting percentage is going through the roof. Obviously, we know Anthony Cirelli is going bonkers right now as well. So that's a big factor here. Plus that 5 assist game that he had. So some of this is not exactly real. Like it looks great, 12 points in the last 6 games, sure. But yeah, 5 of those were in one game. So that said, I love the ice time. The ice time is really my biggest, I think Hagel's biggest feature. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's very well regarded and trusted by Coach John Cooper there to be out there in all situations. And he's getting power play 1 now, which is something that we predicted early on in the season, which is great to see, right? So everything is there for this guy to get point per game for me. And I think he is a version of a stay high, right? Like he has 75 points last year. He might be able to top that this year, but I honestly don't think it's going to go much more than point per game. That's sort of how I'm valuing Hagel here, but there's lots to like about Hagel. I do think the on-ice shooting percentage is going to regress a touch.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to happen. But yeah, I mean, he's up in the minutes. Even if you look at average time on ice on the season, about 21.5 minutes there. That's a lot better than what I thought he was going to get at the
Yeah.
start of the season. So that means something to me. Yes, 15.4% on ice shooting percentage. No way that lasts. But what is the new normal?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that, yeah, point per game could be a reasonable expectation for him moving forward as long as this kind of deployment holds. Let's head over to Vegas. Ivan Barbashev, who you also mentioned, Blake, in that Sell High show. 4 goals, 8 points in his last 5 here. Just under 18 minutes a night. 183rd shots per 60, 102 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 249 on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 192 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. On pace now for 39 goals, 89 points, and just under
What?
17 minutes in average time on ice on the season. Uh, Tell me what you're seeing with Barbashev now, Blake. Does anything that happened over the weekend change where you're at in your show?
No, but of course I got a bunch of DMs being like, "What? Two more goals for Barbashev? What the hell?" I mean, good for this guy. He's cooking right now. He's on a heater. There's no question. Anyone who watches hockey, we know there's streaky players. Guys get hot, guys get cold, and right now Barbashev is doing the thing, and it shows out in all his statistics, right? Like in the last 5 games, he's shooting 40%. What? Yeah, you think he's a 40% shooter, folks? Yeah, go ahead and predict him for 90 points. No. Also 17.4 on ice shooting percentage. What? No. Okay, this is a classic sell high to me, but it's not a guy you need to get off of right now. Like he's cooking right now, and he's playing with Jack Eichel, who I really think is, and obviously you really identified Eichel this season as a player of interest for yourself. He's an amazing play driver. He's an elite player, and this guy has access to him at even strength, and they're cooking. There's no doubt about it, but. Last game here, a prime example of what you can kind of see from Ivan Barbashev as well. So yeah, against Winnipeg on the 29th, he got 2 goals. He had just under 19 minutes. That's great. But then the next game, 0 points, -2, only 16 minutes. So I think the fall off with Ivan Barbashev could be extreme when it does happen. And it's not guaranteed to come back. Like he's not on power play 1. That is a kind of a little bit of a red flag for me as well. If he had power play 1, I'd be like, all right, let's just keep rolling. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think this guy has some inflated value, and maybe you can flip him for someone of a higher tier that has more chances to get consistent production.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that all tracks for me. The the luck metrics are off the chain here. 82% IPP, 27% shooting percentage, almost a 15% on ice shooting percentage. You compare that to where he's been at throughout his career. Yeah, he had a few seasons early on where he had high IPPs, but as he's
Right.
moved up lineups, the IPP has dropped. And in Vegas, he's been in the 50s for IPP. So this is obviously a huge jump this year. Yeah, maybe there is something different about how it's running this year, and it's running a little bit more through him. They're trusting him. Maybe Eichel trusts him a little bit more, and he's letting him carry the pucks a little bit more. There are ways that you can get a slightly improved IPP, but you can't expect a 30-point jump in IPP to sustain.
No, it's insane.
Likewise, a 10% jump in shooting percentage, or even like a 3% jump in on ice shooting percentage. So yeah, lots of stuff going right for Barbashev in the early going, and I would agree he's a pretty classic sell high. Let's move over to a player that I don't think you've ever discussed on the podcast, Blake. Connor Garland, also 4 goals, 8 points in his last 5 games here. 21 minutes a night, 81st shots per 60, 106 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Curiously, the on ice numbers are really bad: 309th in Corsi, 4 per 60, and 311th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now on pace for 30 goals, 78 points on the season. Tell me about why Connor Garland just never comes up in your mind, Blake.
I love Connor Garland. In terms of eye test, this guy is the best there is. He really is. Like he's willing the Canucks to win. He's doing everything in his power to help them win. So I'm a big fan of the player, but he's a sell high, folks. There's no question. Like he's not a 71 point player even. He's definitely a better player than, like, he had 47 points last year. His career high is 52. I think 60 point Connor Garland. Yeah. He could hit that. I think he could absolutely hit that this year with this increase in deployment. Like for reference, last year, his time on ice average was 14.32. This year, 19.26. Damn. And you know what? It absolutely makes sense when you're watching the game. You're like, yeah, get Garland out there. Like things are going sour. Get Garland's line out there, right? He just makes magic happen. I love Connor Garland, but I mean, he just doesn't have the tools, I think, to keep this going season long. It doesn't make sense. We got JT Miller, who will return at some point here, right? Elias Pettersson is figuring things out. Garland's not even on that top line anymore. Like this last game here, Garland played with Pia Suter and Dakota Joshua. Okay. Like that's not a great place for offense. He does have power play 1, so that's nice, but we can't expect a 70-point Connor Garland moving forward. But what you can expect is electricity when he's out on the ice. This guy's amazing. I love Connor Garland. I maintain if this guy was like a foot and a half taller, he'd be like the best player in the NHL.
All right. I want to throw it at you, Blake. Put you on the spot here. Connor Garland, or would you trade him right now for, somebody with a good streaming schedule this week that might be a hold? Would you trade him for Kirill Marchenko?
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get Marchenko in there.
Sean Monahan, someone along those lines who has a good schedule this week, but also will get you probably like stay in your lineup and actually contribute season long potentially. Yeah, I think that's a deal you can probably get done, and that might actually be a pretty big win for you in the long run.
I like that.
All right, let's move over to Utah. Logan Cooley, 3 goals, 8 points. His last 5, 18 and a half minutes a night. Like to see that. 128 shots per 60, 73rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 118 in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60. Here's the stat I really like. 15th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Now on pace for 20 goals, 68 points on the season. His average time on ice is only 16 and a half minutes, so obviously big jump in the recent going here, and he's been producing with it. How excited should we be about Logan Cooley? Do you think that the 68-point pace is reasonable? Do you think he can do more or less? What's your temperature on Mr. Cooley?
Mr. Cooley, that reminds me of Boys to Men, Cooley High Harmony. I know you're not going to know what I'm talking about, but remember, Motown Philly back again. That's 90s, all right? That's classic 90s, and Logan Cooley, was not born at that
No.
time. Okay, so that's fine, but he's got a beautiful head of hair, as he should. Anyways, yeah, I'm excited about it. If we're excited about Dylan Genther, which we are, we got to be excited about Logan Cooley. They're playing together, and I think they complement each other really well. There's I think lots to like about Logan Cooley. I like the season that he had last year. Played all 82, 44 points. That's a great rookie season for him. Now he's on a 68-point pace, right? With metrics that are pretty similar, right? Nothing really off the charts that's going nuts here. And now he has power play 1. So I think if Cooley has power play 1, you got to have him on your roster. It's really like, as much as you would have to have Dylan Genther on your roster, I think Cooley is in that same kind of tier of players. So I'm excited. I like what they're doing in Utah. It feels like they went through a little bit of a lull, and now they're kind of back to producing a little bit. And how about our boy, Nicky Schmaltz? Maybe we'll talk about him later. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I concur basically. Dylan Genther, we could have put him on this list. He's got 3 goals, 7 points in his last 5 as well. Significantly less ice time, I will note, for Genther, under 16 minutes a night,
Right.
but 5th in the league in individual scoring chances for per 60 and 6th in on-ice scoring chances for per 60. Definitely, we could have fit Genther in here on the season. His numbers look insane as well. So I got a lot of love for Dylan Genther, but Cooley's the one getting the deployment at the moment, the just actual time on ice, which I love. Yeah, it's just a really good spot for him. Kills penalties, which is obviously how he's getting a lot of that time. But that's more time that he's out on the ice. He's going to be a threat with that speed.
More confidence.
Yeah, I think it's just a really good spot for Cooley to continue to learn, continue to gain the coach's trust. Being on top power play, being on top penalty kill, all these spots are really good for a young player like this. Really good sign that he's able to produce. The underlying metrics are coming up. Everything looks wheels up to me. The underlying metrics, like he's got a 15.4% on ice shooting percentage at the moment. That'll come down, but I think the additional time on ice can really combat that. So yeah, like the 68-point pace on the season, I think that might be legit. Wouldn't surprise me at all if you can get a few more shots on goal, which wouldn't surprise me either. We could see up to 25 goal pace, maybe push towards a 30 goal pace the rest of the season. I think we talked about it kind of ad nauseum in the offseason. Like Cooley and Genther could really start to turn things on maybe in the second half of the season. Looks like that might just be happening a little bit earlier than we anticipated. Let's move over to San Jose. Got a trio of players here with 7 points in their last 5 games. Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, and Jake Wallman on the back end. So these are pretty different, obviously, for different reasons. Like Wallman obviously being the defenseman, that's pretty eye-opening. Back on the top power play for the time being, 22 minutes a night. Celebrini getting 20 minutes a night. He's got 4 goals amongst his 7 points there. Been shooting. The individual scoring chances for are not so great. Actually, Will Smith has better underlying numbers, I would say, at the moment than Macklin Celebrini. But Will Smith down under 13 and a half minutes a night. So that's obviously concerning for the sustainability of his numbers.
Right.
But yeah, 12th in on-ice Corsi 4 per 60 over the last 5 games, Will Smith for the San Jose Sharks. Interesting stuff from all three. Talk to me about what you're seeing and if these guys are really changing your mind about what you thought of them at the beginning of the season, Blake.
I think we were in on some of these guys. Like Macklin Celebrini, you had a really healthy projection for him. I was pretty close as well. I think he could absolutely hit that and probably surpass it, which is really nice. So I love what I'm seeing there. He's doing great work on the power play as well. This kid's really special. So I don't have too much more to say on Macklin Celebrini. I think this is probably like a 65 to 70 point player. So I like that. Will Smith to me is a little bit more sketchy. He's getting the Leo Carlson treatment from last year. So just when I see that a player they have a plan for, and that means like, oh, we're going to hold him out of this second half of the back-to-back, even though he played a back-to-back here recently. I'm just not going to be stoked on that player. It's going to burn you. You know what I mean? Because he's a waiver wire player. So you pick him up and then he doesn't play, right? That only has to happen one time for you to be like, you know what? I'm out. So that said too, this guy's a great player. He's going to be really good next year. Okay. So I'm not super in there, but I am absolutely in on Jake Wallman, power play 1 or not. We've talked about this a lot, but I'll let you talk about the metrics, but this guy is popping the hell off on the season. He's on a 71 point pace. Stevie Yzerman, what was your thinking, my man? You're like, yeah, you know what? We'll give you Wallman, whatever. It's like, he's actually good. You know, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Jake Wallman. I think he's a must-roster player at this point. Obviously, getting power play 1 is really good for his fantasy production as well. He has 3 power play points. His career high power play points is 4. So he's about to smash that. But I mean, a 71-point pace, that's not realistic. I do think that Wallman could maybe put up 50 points. I think that's probably ceiling Wallman with like 11 or 12 goals. That would be pretty damn nice. That'd be a great season for Jake Wallman. Plus some awesome block periffs as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Wallman is an interesting one. I'm still concerned about the power play. It's been a nice stretch, but overall, on the course of the season, I'm not sure that it's enough to sustain like consistent, like has to be on a team all season long if he doesn't sustain the top power plays. So that is still of some concern to me. But yeah, he's been getting it done. There's no doubt about that. 8th in the league amongst all defensemen in shots per 60 on the season. So that's nice. 61% IPP and 11.8% on ice shooting percentage are probably high for Wallman, and that'll regress. But I do think he can hit this 15 goals that he's on pace for right now, and that's obviously super valuable for fantasy purposes on the back end. Celebrini, yeah, he's overproducing what I expected for sure. 17% shooting percentage is probably a touch high, but the rest of it looks pretty sustainable. Big minutes already, 20 minutes a night. I'm actually curious what I had him for minutes because that would probably influence a lot of this. Yeah, I had him for 17 and a half minutes and he's averaging 20. If he can sustain that all year long, yeah, he could hit 70 plus points on the season, and that wouldn't shock me. Just even according to my original projections on him, I had him for 65.5 points as my baseline projection. To get this extra 2.5 minutes a night could definitely elevate him well above 70 points as a point pace. So yeah, I'm into it with Macklin Celebrini. I will note, like I say this with every rookie, but rookies have a tendency to go through big lulls and big hot streaks. So temper your expectations just a little bit. This may
Never.
be this may be a situation where he does run a little cold at some point. But I mean, talk about pedigree with this guy. I think he was overshadowed as a number 1 overall pick coming the year after Bedard. There's people out there on Twitter who are telling you Celebrini should be on the Team Canada for 4 Nations above Connor Bedard. So I don't know exactly where I land on that take personally. I'd have to think about that one a bit more. But yeah, it's at least out there, and he's the reason. He's making it happen. He's the reason that is out there. I do concur with your take on Will Smith. I think he probably needs 1 more year before this thing really comes home to roost. All right, last one on the list for the hot shots, Jacob Chychrun. 3 goals, 7 points, his last 5 here. Getting on the top power play in Washington. They're running 2 defensemen, Carlson and Chychrun up there. What is with the 2 defensemen power plays and then other spots, the 5 forwards? What is going on here? But 15th shots per 60, 15th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, first in shot attempts per 60 from amongst all defensemen, 4th in on-ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 13th on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. This is what Jacob Chychrun can do. He is absolutely that dude, and that's why I was into it. I went back and adjusted my baseline projection on Chychrun because I didn't see him unseating. I didn't see him unseating Carlson for the top power play. That obviously hasn't happened, but he's been able to get there just alongside him, which is really nice. And I did have that hot take. I should actually figure out what that was. I think I said my hot take was Chychrun unseats Carlson by the midpoint of the season or something, and goes on a bender as the best fantasy defenseman for the rest of the season or something like that. I don't know. That was obviously intended to be a hot take and a little spicy, but it does underscore why I was so interested in Chychrun despite a relatively low projection for point pace. I had him for 42 points, 12 goals on the season, is because I knew that this player was in there, and if it could be unleashed and if he could get into a situation where he felt at home and was able to play his game in Washington sooner rather than later, that this was within the wheelhouse for a guy like Chychrun. I'll stop gushing. Blake, tell me your thoughts on Chychrun.
Yeah, buddy. I mean, we were together on this. This is a guy that we've both been in on. To me, he's a 20-goal threat from the back end, and he always has been. The problem is deployment. He's been buried behind guys like Jake Sanderson in Ottawa there. I mean, yeah, he had some good years in Arizona, but he was injured as well. So he never got to, fully reach his potential. And then he comes to Washington and he's behind John Carlson, who's still playing amazing. You know what I mean? Like John Carlson is really doing the thing. He looks great out there. But I love this addition to Power Play One. Obviously, with Ovechkin injured, he's out there doing stuff. And to me, this isn't even like a sell high. This is like what Chychrun would do with some opportunity and deployment, right? Like he's on a 65-point pace. Sure, that's probably ceiling. But I mean, 55 to 65 points, Jacob Chychrun with double-digit goals. That's what we're looking at here. This guy's an elite offensive defenseman, and he's really showing that now. I love that. He's number one in chucking pucks over the last 5 games. That's amazing. So, this is a great player that I think you probably got at a ton of value in draft season just because he is behind John Carlson. And they're going to have an interesting decision to make there when Ovechkin does come back. But until he does, I think Chychrun's spot on Power Play One is pretty secure.
Love that. All right, let's keep rolling. Quick Patreon plug here. Supporter tier, $2 a month gets you access to Patreon-only live shows. Will be one next week, not this week. The Apples tier is $8 a month. That gets you access to those Patreon-only live shows and also access to the Patreon-only Discord channels. It also will get you access to show notes, like the notes that Blake and I are working off for this flagship show here, but also the waiver wire show notes where we give you the list, the ranks, everything that we talk about in those episodes. You get it in written form so you can reference it whenever you want. And the Apples and Genos player evaluation tool. That's what Blake and I are working with when we're bringing you the last 5 game stats, when we're giving you the stats, the ranks on the season, all that kind of stuff I think is really valuable for evaluating a player. And that's what you get with the Apples and Geos player evaluation tool. And if you are a true degenerate, for $15 a month, you can get into the Genos tier. Gets you all those perks, but also gets you every single question answered, guaranteed by yours truly. And that's just something I'm providing for the people. Let's move over to have nots. Top of the list has to be JJ Peterka at the moment. It's been a rough stretch for Peterka. I'm showing it's got 0 points for sure in the last 5 games for Peterka. I don't know if it goes back further than that. Yeah, it's a 6-game pointless streak for JJ Peterka at this point. Still getting 20 minutes a night. 188th in shots per 60. That's less than we would typically see from Peterka. 113th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60. 19th in on ice Corsi 4 per 60. That's a good number, but 112th in on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Now pacing for 26 goals, 60 points, 18 and a half minutes time on ice on the season. It's a weird spot for Peterka to be in. We thought that he'd at least be consistent because he is kind of that player who generates a lot, and usually the guys who generate a lot, they don't go quite as cold as this. That being said, it is a player I didn't have a big time shooting percentage number on him. Predicted him for an 11% shooting percentage, resulting in, get this, 27 goals and 60 points on the season. So he's basically perfectly in line with my projection at this exact moment. Blake, what do you think of Peterka? Just a cold stretch and he'll pop out of it. Do you think that the season-long pace is better or worse than what we should expect moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting player. We've been hearing a lot about him in the Discord as well. I think this is a must-hold player. You got to have Peterka on your roster. He was without Tage for a long time there, and I think, yeah, he's still a young guy, and I think he does need access to Tage Thompson to really reach that potential, and that just wasn't there. And then you look at the last 2 games here, their line has been doing pretty damn well when it comes to tilting the ice, getting Corsi 4, getting shots 4, but they've been snake bit, right? Like Tage is having monster games there and just putting donuts up on the board. So I think it's just a cold streak you got to ride through. But I don't know if you have to drop the player. I mean, you could, right? But to me, this is a guy I'm definitely trying to hold on to. He's still got Power Play 1 and he's got access to Tage. So I'm not overly concerned, but yeah, maybe we put the brakes on the massive breakout. I mean, he's on a 60-point pace. I think 65 points, Peterka is right in the wheelhouse, and that's where we're getting a lot of value from this player.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I did want to, just bump the brakes just a little bit on Peterka. I still love the player, still agree that he was an obvious breakout candidate this year. I think the IBP can come up a little bit. He was at 66% last year, at 57% this year. I think that can come up a bit. The on ice shooting percentage is better than it's been the last few years. That makes sense to me. He's playing with better players. The shooting percentage is a little bit higher. The shots per 60 is actually down for Peterka,
Mhm.
going up in minutes and getting more ice time there. That's a little bit concerning, but the individual scoring chances for are identical to last year. So that gives me a pretty good feeling that he's just kind of changing the game a little bit, not really. Not really being less dangerous, I guess I'll say, in the way that he's approaching the game. And so, yeah, I kind of think I would stick pretty close to my original projection for him, really close to this season long pace he's now on after this recent cold stretch. I don't really have a great reason. I projected him for just under 18 minutes average time on ice. On the season, he's at 18 and a half. The last few games, 20 minutes. So maybe he gets a little bump that way, and you can see him crossing the 65 point threshold or 65 plus, maybe a little better case scenario for Peterka. I can see that coming. But yeah, this is a player that I would prioritize because we don't really know what the ceiling is, and getting these kinds of players where you feel pretty confident in a 60 to 65 point player, but you also think that, if the percentages go his way, he could actually have a pretty big year
Mhm.
from this point onward. And so if Paterka was dropped in one of my leagues, I would be all over that. I don't think he will be, but if he was, I'd be there in a heartbeat. Let's move over to Colorado. Casey Middlestat, Blake's favorite player, 20 minutes a night, but that's resulting in no points as of late for Mr. Middlestat. Again, it's shown 0 points in his last 5 games. It is also a 6 game pointless streak for Casey Middlestat. Now, 380th in shots per 60, 355 individual scoring chances for per 60. Yeah, that's pretty terrible. 135th Corsi 4 per 60, 82nd on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. It really does feel like he's taking a back seat here, especially as of late. He's got better wingers, and now he's just like handing off to them all the time. I
Mhm.
don't know exactly what to make of this overall. So help us out here, Blake. What do you make of Casey Middlestat? What should we expect from him moving forward?
I mean, I don't think this isn't Casey Middlestat. 0 points in 6 games. I don't think that makes sense. But yeah, he was always running hot. I had him on the Sell High show 3 weeks ago, right? Like, can you get any value from this player? Because clearly, this is a guy that doesn't generate any offense for himself individually, right? His offense is fully reliant on his line mates, right? Distributing to them, facilitating their shots, their chances, and hopefully their goals and assists, right? So it's just, yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of hope here. I think he still has access to power play one there on Colorado, so you can't drop him. I don't think you can drop Casey Middlestat at this point. You could, like, I'm not saying he's a must hold. Like, I'm looking at potentially dropping him in one spot that I have him because of this cold streak. I can't just keep taking zeros, but the deployment and the opportunity is there for Middlestat. The metrics never will be, but I mean, he has 4 straight games of playing 20 minutes and up for the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche are just playing like crap, and I think that's well documented. So this is going to bounce back. He's not this player. He's also not the player that he was at the beginning of the season. Right now he's pacing for 59 points, which is kind of what he was pacing for last year, and that's probably where he's going to end up. He's going to be a 58, 59, 60-point player on the year. So as long as you're valuing him that way, he is going to get back on a hot streak here, especially with access to that power play.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's just a question about how long it takes, right? Yeah, big time from where I had him and projected in the offseason. I had him at 16 minutes average time on ice, and he's blowing that away, obviously, here. And even since the other players have all come back, he's blowing that away still. A large chunk of that is due to consistent power play one time. And
Yep.
so that is still in question to me, whether he's able to hang on to that. I know that they like having that second center there to take the draws alongside McKinnon. So that is probably a good reason to keep him there. And he's capable of facilitating on a power play like that. He doesn't have to be the star. He can just get the puck to McKinnon, to Rantanen, to Makar, and obviously they're going to take care of the rest. That being said, how long does it last if you're literally not able to produce anything, even in those circumstances, when they have guys like Nichushkin, Lekanen, Colton coming back eventually here? So there are other options that they can go with. Yeah, That's the big question for me. And so I don't think it's crazy to drop him. In a 12-team league, it's not crazy to drop him. Anything deeper than that, I'd probably be trying to hold him, especially through a 4-game week if you're getting him in on games. Just because as of right now, he's still got that opportunity, and that opportunity is one of the best spots in the league to produce points theoretically. So there is that. Let's move over to Philly now. 17 and a half minutes a night for Joel Farabee, actually getting some love from John Tortorella, and he's not been able to translate that into any points. But he has been able to translate that into 9th in the league in shots per 60, 12th in individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 108 on ice Corsi 4 per 60, 128 on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. It's a 26-point pace for Joel Farabee on the season, but I maintain that there's a player under here, damn it. Blake, tell me what your thoughts on Joel Farabee are. I think my position right now is that it's going to take a trade away from Philadelphia for Farabee to ever show anything, but I do believe that there is a player locked under John Tortorella's thumb here.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that is like, yeah, there's a player here on another team. Okay. And we've seen Joel Farabee do this lots. He amazing metrics under the hood. He's looking good. He goes through little spells here where he's playing really well, but 0 points in 7 games, buddy. No. And he's getting some reasonable opportunity here besides like he's getting some power play time too. Although, yeah, Tortorella's doing the 1A, 1B thing there in Philly, which absolutely stinks and nukes a lot of guys' fantasy value. But yeah, I think you could do worse if you wanted to go for a streamer on Philly. Like this guy's playing with Travis Konechny, who is crushing this year. He's playing amazing. And Sean Couturier, nice little rebound here. I'm taking a lap here, Nate. I remember one conversation we had where you were just talking about Sean Couturier, insulting him, saying that he had terrible teeth. Or lack of teeth. You're just being very hurtful. But I think that's probably the place you want to be there. And he plays the same position as Matvei Michkov, so he's not going to play with Michkov. So I think he's got good opportunity, good metrics. Nothing's happening. So yeah, you could do a lot worse, but it could just as easily go down to like 12 minutes a night under Torts. And that's why, we're really not into a lot of Philly players, are we?
Yeah, Farabee is just a prime example of what Tortorella can do to a player's potential and value for fantasy purposes. And I also would just like to state for the record that Blake is victory lapping a take on a player who has a 20-goal, 48-point pace on the season in Sean Couturier.
We got to go back to that tape. I think you were projecting him for like 22 points or some crap. No, all right. This is like a Jesperi Kotkaniemi situation, all right?
22 goals, 42 points was the projection.
Okay. All right. You're bang on. I don't know what I have projected for. I don't even know. We'll get into the numbers. I'll clip that. Don't worry. I'll post it, everyone. That's fine.
All right. We got to get our shots in when we can. Exactly. Unlike Andrei Svechnikov, as of late, 1 goal in his last 5, but no assists. 18 and a half minutes, still getting decent time on ice there. 130th in shots per 60. That's not where Svechnikov has been throughout much of the season. He's 15th in the league in shots per 60 on the season. But yeah, as of late, it's been petering out a little bit. 178th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 99th Corsi, 4 per 60. 194 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Yeah. Svechnikov ranks first in the entire league in on ice Corsi, 4 per 60 on the season. So yeah, this is actually a pretty notable dip for him to be down here in the last little bit. What are you seeing with Carolina here? What can explain the dip from Svechnikov? Is it anything more than a blip? Should we be concerned? I mean, we look up and now he's on a 27-goal, 61-point pace, and that's not where we thought he'd be at this point.
Yeah, Carolina's had a bad stretch here, right? To the point where RBA comes out, Rod Brindamore, and says like, yeah, we need to take our licks. They just lost a back-to-back to Florida. Take our licks. We got to get back to the drawing board. So they're sort of regrouping a little bit after a really bad stretch of play. And yeah, Svechnikov's no different. He was projected. I saw a tweet from, I don't know if it was Walt Ruff or Ryan Henkel, I think, is the other beat writer there for the Carolina Hurricanes. But he said that this guy was on the 4th line and he was taking line rushes on the 4th line. What the hell? And I commented on the Twitter post, like, what does RBA have against Svech? And everybody was coming at me. They're like, he's lazy. He takes penalties. He's inconsistent. I'm like, Yeah, okay, but for fantasy, I mean, this guy is 15th overall in shots on goal per 60. What the hell's wrong with you people? Okay, 11th overall in individual scoring chances for per 60. So I'm still way in on Andrei Svechnikov. I think this is a massive buy low. Send offers out there. Get Svechnikov. He's going to be back cooking here. He's still on power play 1. The Hurricanes have had a few bad games in a row, so I'm not too concerned. And even this year, I think we talked about it in the offseason, the bottom 6 for Carolina is not, they can't really rely on them to go out there and provide offense. So RBA is already leaning more heavily into his top 6, right? And Svechnikov is in that top 6. So I think, yeah, this has been a bad stretch for him, but ride it out. He's a massive buy low. I think the metrics are crazy. I'm just looking at his 5v5 shooting percentage. He's shooting 1.89%. Okay. Do you think that Svechnikov is going to shoot 2% at 5v5 on the season? Because if you do, let me know your location so I can come over there and hit you in the head with the tack hammer. Okay. Because damn, no, that makes no sense. He's massively underachieving. There's no injuries involved here that we know of. I think it's just a cold spell, and he's going to get back to cooking here. He's already doing pretty decent on the power play. So buy low on Svech. Book it, Nate. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I didn't have huge expectations for Svechnikov to start the season, really. I didn't have him far off this pace. 29 goals, 72 points was my projection for Svechnikov. 17 minutes, 45 seconds average time on ice on the season. He's right around that. So it's not super shocking to me that he's at this place at this point, but the underlying metrics are much better than I thought they would be at this point, and so that's actually given me hope that there could be even more than that. So yeah, I think overall he has definitely been getting unlucky for the amount of work he's been putting in, and we should see some positive regression coming his way soon. I will note, for all the terrible things happening to the Hurricanes, they are the 6th unluckiest team at 5v5 in the NHL PDO wise.
Right.
Obviously, it doesn't help having your top 2 goalies go down to injury. That changes a lot for the makeup of a team. But yeah, I think I'm in agreement there. Svechnikov is probably a buy low at this point. Let's talk some defensemen now. Colton Parayko was one of the better pickups of the early season. Now just 1 assist in his last 5 games. Still skating 25.5 minutes a night. 93rd shots per 60, 89th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 150 Corsi 4 per 60, 120 on ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Now pacing for 13 goals, 40 points on the season. Just regression to the mean for Parayko. Anything to see here, Blake?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, hopefully you had him in when he was really cooking, because that's mega value for this guy. This he's not known for this, right? His career high is 35 points. All right, that's great. And right now he's pacing for 39. So this is actually good. All right, this is good for Colton Parayko. So just manage your expectations. Obviously, there's some really good periffs with this player. So in a bangers league, I think he's absolutely rosterable, but in a points league, don't expect too much.
Yeah, I think I'm in alignment there. And I will note Philip Broberg is back and takes power play 2. Right. Parayko has no power play at the moment, no power play exposure at all. And I think that's I mean, in bangers, heavy leagues, or things that give you a lot of value for peripheral categories, Colton Parayko can still get that done for you.
Yep.
But I don't think you can roster a guy consistently in fantasy who's not getting any power play exposure at all on the back end. Charlie McAvoy for the Boston Bruins actually had a bit of a day today after I put him in the sheet here. So he's now 2 goals, 3 points in his last 5, over 23 minutes a night. 33rd shots per 60, 24th individual scoring chances 4 per 60. Still just a 16 goal. I guess that part's good, but the 32-point pace is a bit of a surprise, obviously, for Charlie McAvoy. Just probably symptomatic of the Bruins to this point in time. What's your take on McAvoy? Is he still a buy low? We've mentioned him in the past and have considered him a buy low then. Is that still ring true for you?
Yep. No, he's definitely a buy low. I'm looking at his numbers here at 5-on-5, and they're right in line. The only thing that's not in line is his on-ice shooting percentage, right? And that's indicative of what the Bruins are doing, right? They're all underachieving, right? David Pastrnak is not doing David Pastrnak things. They don't really have a center that is capable of putting the biscuit in the basket. So that stinks. It's tough times there in in Boston, right? It's not the same team. It's not your father's Boston Bruins, all right? It's not what's happening here. I mean, 32-point pace. No, I think, even with kind of a poor start here, I think he should still be like a 45-point defenseman with really good periffs. And looking at his numbers on the power play, those are even more concerning, right? But also, I think they should regress even more, right? His IPP is 40%. That's one of the lowest marks of his career, but he's shooting a ton. Second highest shots and goal per 60 that he's had. Shooting percentage, terrible, right? And then on-ice shooting percentage, again, on the power play. What the hell? Like, for reference, last year was 11.91. This year, 5.05. Okay. That's not real. That's going to come up. That's going to get back up to double digits. He's going to start putting some points up on the power play. So, yeah, I think he's absolutely a buy low, and he's pissing a lot of people off right now. So it might be a buy way low. I mean, unfortunately, he got 2 goals in this game here against Montreal. One of them was a shorty, which was pretty damn nice. So, yeah, I mean, that you won't be able to get him for a song like you probably could have got him before today's game. But I'd be putting out some offers for Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah, maybe wait one more game and hopefully he goes down again before you send the offers. But yeah, it was nice goals too. Randomly got a shorthanded breakaway and made no mistake. Nice move back in, puts it in. The other goal is a wraparound, like faked the goalie out of the net and wrapped it around. Both really nice goals today for Charlie McAvoy. And he does have that skill. He does have that ability. Yeah, I think better days are ahead. And if someone is selling low, I'd definitely be in on that. And now Blake's most hated player, Morgan Riley, 1 assist in his last 5 games here. Still 21 minutes a night, but demoted off the top power play in favor of a 5th forward. Matthew Knies in this case, 20th amongst all defensemen, shots per 60, 39th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 30th on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 13th on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. I want to make this a bit more of a season-long question. What should we expect? We've seen the different iterations. We see OEL on the top power play early in the season. We see the 5-forward power play coming out now. What's your thoughts on Morgan Riley? What pace can we expect if we feel like the situation could just be this unsettled all season long?
Yeah, it's not a great place to be, that's for sure. I mean, I hate the on-ice shooting percentage there for Morgan Riley, and I hate the dinking around on the power play. Like, just put this guy on power play 1 and leave him there. What are you doing? But this is the second coach in a row that's been doing that. So, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. Obviously, they like a different look there on the power play. So, yeah, that's going to cap Morgan Riley's ceiling. I think I had it projected for 60. I think he's on pace for 50 now. That sounds about right to me. Like, they have some elite players there in Toronto, as you know, Nate. So just access to those players. And Morgan Riley is no slouch. This guy's a really good player. I maintain, like, 2 years ago in the playoffs where, they finally won a round there, Morgan Riley was their best player. It was Morgan Riley. It was Willie Nylander. They were playing out of their minds. I really like the player, but obviously coaches don't really like what he brings to the table on the power play, and that's going to be a revolving door there. So that said, I think 50-point pace rest of season is good with headroom for more if he is able to lock down power play 1.
Yeah, I think that it might actually be a sneaky time to go out and try to buy Morgan Riley because I do think he's a player that can live on your roster all season long, even without power play 1.
Yep.
You might be able to buy him at that kind of price right now. People are just fed up with the on again, off again situation here, and you can kind of buy at that price, take the good with the bad, and hopefully turn a profit at the end of the day. Yeah, might be something worth exploring within your league. All right. Let's move over. Before we do, if we didn't talk about a player that you want to hear about, please make sure you join us Monday, 8 p.m. EST every week. I'm live streaming the Puzzling Players segment. Come in, ask your questions in the comments. I've got Gugsy coming on to join me, and it's going to be a good time with him as it always is. So make your way over there. I put out a call for players to talk about in the Apples and Geos Discord on Monday afternoons. So if you're not in the Discord, another reason for you to click that link in the description and join there. But find your way into that stream one way or another and come hang out. It's always a good time. Let's get under the hood, Blake. It is Nick Schmaltz this week that I want to talk about. Yeah, Schmaltz is a guy that I've always been in on. It seems like he's always frustrating people, and then you look up at the end of the season, you're like, oh yeah, another 70-point season, or at least a pace for Nick Schmaltz. 70th in shots per 60, 18th in individual scoring chances for per 60 over the last 10 games, and this is a little bit new for Nick Schmaltz, and this is the reason that I'm a little bit more excited again about what Schmaltz is bringing to the table right now, is that over the last little bit, and even on the season so far, he has developed. I don't know if it's a scoring touch. It hasn't quite developed into actual
Last game, at
goals
least.
in the last game. Yeah, but his last 2 goals in the last game are the only 2 goals of the season for Nick Schmaltz. That being said, he has improved his individual scoring chance for production on the season here. That's got me a little bit excited about what could be next for Nick Schmaltz, and a little bit more making me believe a little bit more in what he should be for the rest of the season. He's got 6 points in his last 5, 11th in individual scoring chances for per 60 over that span. So that's obviously a good sign. 18-15 average time on ice in this last 10-game stretch that we're talking about here. Yeah, just the 7 points in 10 games there, which isn't terrific stuff, but 6 of those in the last 5 is really popping to me. So in the end, like, I do feel like this is one of the safer players in terms of deployment. He's stapled to Clayton Keller. They tried moving it around when everything wasn't going well, and that just made it go worse. And then they moved him back, and what do you know? Things started to go well again. So I think this is a player that will be next to Keller for, I don't know, 80+% of the season. And that's always been a good marriage between the two, and I think it will continue to be so, with the possible added benefit of Schmaltz getting a little bit more dangerous with the shots himself this year. Hasn't shown up on the score sheet yet, but I do think that it probably will. He's on pace for 65 points on the season, despite the only 2 goals on the season here. So tell me what you think about Nick Schmaltz, and what do you think a reasonable projection for a point pace might be for him moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. First off, I'm excited that he kind of came through the woods here. Like he dipped down. They started playing him about 15 minutes. They jumped him down to the third line there. I think he was on power play 2 at one point, and now he's back. And I couldn't be happier. This is a 70-point player. Like he's pacing for 65 points with only 2 goals. His shooting percentage is 3.8%. It was 13.9 last year. So that is going to regress up. Okay, that's just common sense, Like, does it get all the way up to 13? Maybe not, but like you detailed here, the metrics, that's something I haven't seen from Nick Schmaltz before, and that's interesting, right? Like, that's a 5-game stretch. That's a decent little stretch. Whereas like a guy like Casey Middlestat or Alex Newhook, or these players that we kind of make fun of here on the show sometimes, they don't ever get these segments here, like a 5-game segment where they're popping off and being 11th overall in individual scoring chances for per 60, right? So I think this all bodes really well for Nick Schmaltz. I think he's feeling his oats. He's feeling his plums. And obviously, you got him back on the line with Barrett Hayton and Clayton Keller. And I think, it's aces up for Nick Schmaltz. And now's a really good time to get him. I don't know. What is he rostered right now, Nate? This is a guy that is always criminally under-rostered. Let's take a look.
Just at 21%.
Yeah. Dear God. Nate's going to take him for the streamer deathmatch, I think. Nate, what do you say? Come on.
I don't think so. I think Utah's only got 3 games this week, so I don't think I can quite get there.
Oh, all right. That's a shame.
All right. Enough love for Nick Schmaltz for one evening. Let's move to move of the week.
All right, buddy. I'll tell you about my move, and none of them worked, by the way. So I'll start with that. But not a lot went well for me this week. It was obviously a poor streaming week, as we detailed in our Saturday show last week. So I took my shot with a bunch of goalie streams, and none of them worked. It was brutal. I got Casey DeSmith early on. He got smashed by Chicago. I grabbed Ilya Samsonov for the Vegas game last night. Got dummied for 6 goals. That was ridiculous. I picked up Caden Primo today to try and win another one. No dice. All right. So I don't know. What's the lesson here? Goalies stink, potentially, but yeah, I don't know. This was an interesting week for me with all this stuff. I might look at saving those ads next time and just seeing what happens. Like, goalies are boom or bust in most leagues, in most league formats, and it's like, I don't know if I want the bust. I'd rather just take my chances and maybe set myself up for next week. I don't know. Like, actually, that's a good question. What do you think, Nate? Like, are you just do or die with goalie streams, like in a week like this?
Uh, Generally, yes, unless I can really find another way to work it. You know, sometimes you get injuries, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's it's just it's bad situation, one where you can't affect the matchup as much as you want to,
I
and
hate it
so
here.
you do have to kind of take those goalie streams as best you can sometimes, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Nope.
That's why, honestly, like to tie this into zero G. That's why I don't make single game goalie streams a big part of my strategy. Really, I'm only by and large, I'm only single game goalie streaming in weeks like this where there's literally nothing else to do, or when I need like big points on a Sunday, and
Yep.
so I pull them in for a Sunday. To try to win a matchup at the last second. That's really the only time I'm single game streaming goaltenders, and the rest I'm really just looking for a couple starts in a week and seeing what I can work with the guys who are in line to get that. So yeah, just had to tie that into zero G
Yep.
just a little bit for the
Makes
people
sense.
there. For myself on the week, this was a pretty fun one. We teased it earlier on, but streaming Nick Jensen, the optimal play for me
That's
in
how
a
you win your week,
16
Nate.
16 team tier 1 couple this week. I actually streamed Artem Zub, and then we found out that he had was a broken leg, I think, on Monday. Like I don't know, 8 hours after I picked him up at 3 a.m. We found that out, and so I was like, well, I still have a Ottawa defenseman sized hole in my lineup this week, and so I went down to Nick Jensen, but he was legitimately the optimal stream for me in that league that week. I truly believe that. In a week like this where you can't get a lot of these players in on games, he was a player that I could actually fit in to my defense core for all 4 games that Ottawa played this week. And so I figured that it was actually better for me to get Nick Jensen in than to get like 2 games played of just about any of the other guys. Obviously, in 16 team, the other guys who are available, even for a couple games, are not like headline players by any stretch of the imagination. And so I went with the Nick Jensen stream, and boy, did that turn out because Nick Jensen
Yeah.
got an assist, and that got me the dub this week. Actually, Frank Vitrano scored another
Yeah.
goal.
I saw
He
that.
got 2 goals and an assist, so pulled me out well in front now. But yeah, we were celebrating the Nick Jensen stream before we got on live here. So, yeah, that's one that feels good. But I did want to highlight that sometimes that is the optimal play. It feels terrible, but some of you do play in these super deep leagues, and you have to figure out what actually is the best play. 4 games of Nick Jensen versus 2 games of some like line 3 power play 2 forward from some other team. And you got to kind of do the math for yourself there and figure, if Nick Jensen gets 1 assist or 2 assists and puts together a bunch of blocks in my league, maybe that's actually a better play than some of the guys that you might think. You might never think of Nick Jensen if you're not thinking that way about it. So, wanted to highlight that there and to just pat myself on the back for
Oh yeah.
streaming Nick Jensen.
Woo!
All right. We do need to get to the head to head streamer deathmatch.
Oh yeah.
And it was a bit of a awkward one this week. My pick, Igor Sharangovich, had a decent week. Started out like gangbusters and quieted down towards the end. 15.5 points. Respectable, but not exciting. Obviously, your Jonathan Drouin did not play. Found out he was injured on Monday and will be out for quite some time. Unfortunately, there are no do-overs in the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. It could not be named so if there were. And so on the season now, it's still 6-2 for Blake, which is humiliating to say the least. But now we've got to make some picks for the upcoming week. And I'm hesitating to make the pick that I want to pick because of how it's gone for me already once this year. But I am going to go with Kirill Marchenko. I can't quit it, and he is
Oh
my
my.
guy.
What is he?
Uh,
What is his rostership, Nate?
oh, is he not under 25%? He
Buddy,
has been for so
you,
long. I'm
you're out of
positive
your
he is.
you're out of your mind. He's
Oh,
nine
he's
percent roster.
49. Oh,
Nate.
man.
Oh my
Brutal.
god. So we'll edit this off. Don't
I've
worry about
got,
it.
yeah, we'll edit it in post. And now I've got to go down the list and figure out who. There was another player that I was looking at that was much lower rostered for sure.
This is how Nate's trying
Uh,
to win, folks. He's trying to get a 49%
this
roster
is the
player.
second time I've
I
done
mean,
this,
what
isn't it?
in the hell?
This is
I
definitely
like my
not the
chances
first
now.
time.
He's making a quick pick.
Yes, this did what I forget which player it was. Do you remember, Blake, which player it was that I ended up with on that week that I had to change course kind of midway through there?
I can't. All I know is what it feels like to win. So that's really, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I just feel that victory, that sweet, sweet
I
victory.
wish that I could contest that a little bit more, but I really don't feel like I have a leg to stand
Kirill
on.
Marchenko. I'll take Connor McDavid as my pick. What are you doing? He's really trying to kill me, folks. This is a death match. This is no laughing matter.
All right. Well, I am going to try to kill you with your own guy. I'm going to go with Kent Johnson then.
Oh, you dingus. And then you
And
take Kent Johnson right out of my. This is
yeah,
terrible.
that's the plan. Even if he doesn't do well, it'll still hurt you. And that's really what the head to head streamer deathmatch is about in the end, after all.
That hurt my feelings. That's fine. I'm going to take Anders Lee of the Islanders there. See what the hell goes on here. He's cooking right now, but I mean Johnson's on power play 1, so Johnson would have been my pick. So good, kudos to you. Nice panic pick. You landed on your feet, Nate.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe it was still a panic pick, but at least I got the Blake stamp of approval, and Blake has obviously been a little bit superior to this point in time in the Ed's Ed Streamer Deathmatch. That's enough compliments for Blake for
All
one
right, thank
day.
you.
We got to get ourselves out of here. Before we do, join the Discord community, link in the description. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment. All those things do really help us out, but that's all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, a terrific free resource.
Is it?
Many thanks to the band. They're there for supplying music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.